And the problem with gay people, or man with man, was that there was no fruit from it, if you like. There was no baby. And that's why he said man should not lie with man. Not because homosexuality was some sort of perversion, because that's all nonsense. It didn't suit the patriarchal society because it didn't lead to procreation, and it didn't further the society's needs, wishes or desires. Therefore, he cited it as an abomination. One of the only, in fact, probably the only abomination from the Leviticus code, which still holds true today because people have misinterpreted and use it to slaughter homosexuals in some parts of the world, and certainly degrade them in others, and keep them down here, under the thumb, in most societies in general. So that was the problem there. Women, as I said, they were only incubators. They just carried the seed. The Leviticus code is more a reflection on how women were treated and how meaningless women were in those days than it is on the homosexual act. It's that simple. I mean, take the sin of Onan from the Bible. Onan's sin was that he had sex with a woman, and before he ejaculated, he actually pulled out and came on the ground. He wasted his seed on the ground. It's called the sin of Onan, a wasted procreational seed. That was the problem. Yeah? And women were of no value. They were simply incubators, as I said. The king of Gerar, right? He was hit over the head with a milestone. A woman hit him over the head with a milestone, and he fell to the ground. And rather than just suffer that, or suffer in any shape or form at a woman's hand, he screamed out to a bloke beside him, saying, "Run me through now with your sword, because I will not be killed by a woman. I will not suffer the humiliation of being killed by something as lowly as a woman." The woman meant nothing in patriarchal society, nor the children, and especially female children. It meant nothing. They would rather be killed, ran through with a sword, than humiliated by a woman. Now, to take it a step further, if we go on to the Sodom and Gomorrah thing, and Lot's story, yeah, the story of Lot, you can better understand the whole nature of the homosexual thing there, and the value of women there, right? Let me recap for those of you who do know Lot's story, and tell you from the beginning for those who don't. Lot was visited by two angels, two male angels, right? From heaven, done us, this is the way they were done, they're all looped. Anyway, these two angels were in Lot's house, and the villagers heard about this, right? And they all went to Lot's house and said, "Listen, you've got two strangers in there, two angels, whatever they are, we want them out here, we want to rape them." Now, first of all, very important here, first of all, you must know that when I say villagers, I'm talking about the townspeople of Sodom, right? Everyone in the town, man, women and children. Now, it's common, it's definitely and commonly translated as the men of Sodom came to rape the two angels who were men. Therefore, you see, you get the homosexual connection. Of course, this is mistranslated because from the original Greek, the word used for men in the story of Sodom is does actually mean people. It doesn't mean men at all, it means people. So yet again, ignoramuses doing their worst. Okay, so when you see it stands people wanting to take these two angels out and humiliate them, women and children alike, that sort of dilutes or completely dissolves the whole idea of the homosexual act, doesn't it? Yeah? They did want to take out the angels, and they did want to rape the angels. That's what they wanted. But not because they fancied the angels, not because they fancied a shag with two angels from heaven or something like that. It was because these angels were strangers. These angels were considered to be intruders, who Lot had invited into their clan, unannounced, without their permission. And patriarchal society, another main feature of it was, if you're not part of the clan, you are not welcome. And when I said earlier on that Leviticus was a code of war, it was also the normative code. This was part of how people reacted to strangers in war, under threat. They were threatened by anyone who they didn't know, who wasn't immediate family or somehow connected to them. So those two men, those two angels in the house, were a threat because they were strangers. And how they dealt with threats in their war code, as part of their war code, was to humiliate and debase the stranger in order to send a clear message to the rest of the world that this clan does not welcome outsiders. And the means they used at the time for humiliating men was to rape them, which is exactly the means that they use in most male prisons these days. It's used for exactly the same purpose. It's not a sexual act. It is a control act. It's a humiliating act. And why it was a humiliating act in Leviticus' time and the time of Sodom was because women were nothing. They were treated as nothing. They were lowly species in this society. And to treat a man like a woman, to rape a man like you would rape a woman, made him nothing. Made him nothing. You took away his manhood, in other words. That's what the act of rape was about in terms of Sodom. First of all, it was not just the men. It was the whole town that was crying out for this. Admittedly, it would have been the men and the boys of a certain age who would have performed the rape, yeah? But the rape was nothing to do with homosexuality. It was to do with power and war and showing outsiders, you are not welcome in our town. That's all it was. And of course, excuse me, it was not just Sodom. It also happened with the householder in the city of Gibeah. He too, Judges 19 and 20, I think. He too had visitors, and like Lot, he said, listen, oh, sorry, I forgot to tell you. It's when they asked Lot for the angels, he said, no, you can't have them. Why do you have my daughter? You see what I mean by women having nothing, being nothing, yeah? So this householder in the city of Gibeah also said the same thing, and except they took his daughter. He put the daughter outside the door and shut the door behind him and said, no, have her instead. So they butchered this young girl, literally, rape, etc., etc. But what was left of her, they took back and they lay her on his doorstep, yeah, and knocked the door and said, there she's back to you, dead, in bits, not in bits, but more or less in bits. But she was soon to be in bits, because out comes Daddy, and instead of mourning his beloved daughter, or showing any regret whatsoever, what he did was he proceeded to cut her up into 12 different pieces. Because now remember, she's only a woman. So she's already had all this stuff done to her. And Daddy then cuts her into 12 different pieces. And he sends a piece to each one of the 12 tribes of Israel. It was all to do with a war thing. But the woman was nothing, just debased, just, I don't know, less than an animal. He just cut her up. He literally cut her up. This is the sort of shit that your kids are reading in the Bible, by the way. And that in many church schools in this country, they're actually teaching. And you're worried about what they're watching on telly or what they're watching on the internet. Have a little thing. Anyway, in the same way that was men taking out the girl, right, and raping her. Now, that wasn't a sin of heterosexuality. That was to do with power, to do with war, to do with degradation. So in the same way that the girl, the daughter in Gibeah, from the city of Gibeah, wasn't an act of heterosexuality, nor was what went on in Sodom an act of homosexuality. It had nothing, both of them, neither of them, had anything to do with sexuality. They were to do with power, war, and a clear message to people from the outside: you are not, under any circumstances, welcome. Now, I don't know about you, but you've got to wonder what this book is actually teaching people. And you hear many, many people saying, oh, it's the moral guide. If you don't believe in God, if you're not a Christian, God, if you're not a Christian, where do you get your morals from? Not from that fucking book, I'll tell you that for nothing. Not from the Bible. You're not getting any morals from that. All you're getting is a